I'm delighted to welcome today, in a very unusual situation, I'm sitting side by side with the lovely Yoyo from the Netherlands, and we're doing this experiment really, Zoom call. Normally we'd be in separate rooms on separate continents, but we happen to have met each other today for the first time and in person, so we're taking advantage of this situation. So welcome, Yoyo, and you are a midwife of the second birth. You have some kind of some kind of amazing capacity to reconcile the irreconcilable. So welcome, and do tell us about what you do and how you came to do what you do.
Yeah, what I do. Do I look at you or do I look to
I think this is an experiment, isn't it? I don't know.
Yes.
We're both looking at each other on the screen. I think if we look at the screen, otherwise we're going to be talking like this, and we're going to be talking away from the camera. So I think if we do this, we look at each other on the screen.
We'll talk into the camera.
Yes, okay.
So yes, in the Netherlands, I have a small center for the art of living, in which I work with people who have a feeling that there's more to life than what they're living. Meaning that they have visions of what they would like to do, but they can't see how to get to them. And I do that in workshops, courses, and individual sessions. And right now, I'm here with you in Portugal for a retreat. And the name of the retreat is Freedom is Within. A lot of people are struggling, with the lack of freedom that the Corona period has created. And we are sort of having a look inside and see how, for instance, a person like Mandela has been in prison for I don't know how long, and he said he never felt unfree.
Okay, so the retreat that you've just spoken about, it was a 10-day retreat, I believe, and it links with your course called Flowering, and the thing about awakening from within. The answers are all within us, aren't they? The answers to life, the meaning, our purpose, etc. seems to come from within, but it's something that people just seem to be working their whole lives to try and find something without themselves, but actually the answers are within. So can you talk to that concept a bit?
And the thing is that the reason why they don't get to the inner answers have to do with tensions. Physical tensions, emotional contractions, and limiting mindset. So we work with all three, and then because of my background as a painter, fine artist, I also work with several forms of creative expression that I connect to a series of 8 chakras, or stages of awakening. The art forms correspond with the themes of the chakras. Each chakra in my courses corresponds with a lifespan of 8 years. So we start with the first 8 years where we develop our survival strategies and are looking for stability and belonging. And so there we work with clay, with modeling the clays of the earth.
This is talking about the first 8 years of our life.
The first 8 years of our life, yeah.
And then what happens in the next chakra? So that's the root chakra.
That's the root chakra. Then the second chakra is about intimacy, sexuality, and emotions. And there I use dance as an art form. Tribal dance, contact improvisation, things like that. Free dance, dancing with your eyes closed so that you really listen to what your body wants to express.
And can you take us up through the other chakras?
Yes, the third chakra, which is about the ego, the personality, about authority issues. And I work with role play, and we just present situations in the lives of the participants that have been in the way of really flowering, coming out. And then we move on to the heart chakra, which is about love and friendship and compassion. And there I use poetry, which is the language of the heart. And then the throat chakra is about opening up your voice. So we do voice work, we do singing, and it's also about resonance. How do you create a situation where what you say is really being received by the one who's listening, you know, to get on the same wavelength. Mm-hmm. Also, listening is an important part of the throat chakra. Really listening. So then the third eye is about transcending duality. So we do photography for looking outside into the world, and we do dream work, looking inside. And from the meeting of these two, we do collages. So nice. Photos and text. It's a very interesting chakra also.
Is that also about looking forward and perhaps creating a vision board of what you'd like to happen?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, what is my real, my real calling?
Yes.
And how do I proceed step by step to move into that direction? Yeah. So then we have the crown chakra. And for me, the crown chakra is about the meeting of the wizard, the wise man, and the fool. Unless you can allow yourself to be foolish, you cannot be wise.
Yes, yeah. So many people take themselves seriously, they don't allow overthinking all the time. Everywhere
a guru who can't laugh is, for me, not really a guru or a master.
Yes, a miserable old git.
Yes. So then we use clowning for the fool, and the Corchester, the fool, who has to be very wise and very alert in his mocking the king,
Yeah, so discerning, still with a sense of humor, but discerning, so more sort of diplomatic, more diplomatic.
And then I've added the eighth chakra, which for me is what I call the beyond the body experience, that we all know, when you're just looking at the sunset and forget all about it, yourself and who you are, or in a mad love affair when you also get lost in the other person.
Yeah.
And it's about ecstasy. And there we use, for our creative expression, tantric exercises. So
fascinating.
That's the whole lot.
So so much to do. I mean, you can't possibly do all this in one workshop, can you?
No, these courses, well, I do preliminary workshops, so that people can have a taste of what it's going to be. And then I do 16 workshops, one every month, divided over 2 years.
Oh gosh, it's really quite involved.
Yes. And I just divide the course into stages of levels of 4 weekends. And after 4 weekends, people can decide whether they continue or have a break or stop, because they have had enough for the time being.
Yes, yeah, interesting.
Yes.
So how did you get into doing this, Yoyo? Because it's really quite unusual the way that lots of people talk about chakras and healing through the chakras, etc. But this is really remarkable how you've pieced it all together, and I'm sure it didn't happen overnight. Talk us through how you came to the to this concept.
Well, I was a full-time painter from 1972 when I left art school, and I had a scholarship for art school in Poland, so I went to Poland. And so I was happily painting until I had a commission to make 3 paintings for an old people's home. Would you call that?
Yes, old people's home.
about contact or connection. And the first one was about the connection between partners, man and woman. And I had an old couple who were very much in love after 60 years of marriage.
Oh, wow. It doesn't happen very often, does it?
So that was a good one. And then the second one was between the generations. So these were big, round paintings, 1.20 meters diameter.
Oh, wow.
And big faces, you know. And this was a grandfather with his grandchild on his arm.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one had to be contact with yourself.
Ah.
So the inner connection. It was an old man's face, all wrinkled, with a pair of old glasses that were sort of, you know,
a bit wonky.
Yes. And I had a nice model, a fisherman for that, who was really beaming and had bright blue eyes. So it was an inspiring model. But somehow I didn't get, you know, what I really wanted it to be, this real, this total feeling of being okay with yourself, being totally stuck as a bug in a rug, you know, with yourself.
Yeah, comfortable in your own skin.
Yes. And it became an obsession.
Oh.
I had been working on it for 3 months, and it still wasn't what it should be like. And I came to the conclusion that if this wouldn't work, then I might as well stop painting because
oh, wow,
nothing to tell.
Yeah.
And then I saw a television program in which a famous psychiatrist was being interviewed. Shall I put out the
no, it's fine. No,
Is it
no,
okay?
fine, yes,
Yes,
yeah.
okay. So he came just back from India, where he had met a guru by the name of Osho, Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. I'd never heard of him, but the way he was telling about his experiences there and the workshops he'd done, and the depth of his being that had been explored there, that I just cranked up my ears. And also how he answered the slightly cynical questions of the interview. So I became curious. And he had written a book about his experiences there. Original Face, it was called, The Way Back Home. So the moment the book came out, which was a week later, I bought the book. I just finished it in one night. And I booked a flight to India.
Wow, goodness me. Divine timing. They say that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. That's remarkable.
Yeah, this was a typical example of that, what you're saying. Yeah. So I went there, and my luggage didn't arrive in Bombay. I only had my shoulder bag. I was wearing a blue dress.
That's fine.
Yeah, a blue dress, and in the ashram, the community where Osho lived, all people walking around clad in orange robes, you know. I felt totally out of tune. The first thing I did was buy something orange to just be too conspicuous.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got my bags back a week later. But I've been there 7 weeks, and I've taken meditations. He had developed a kind of meditation particularly suited for people from the West, who are very much in their heads.
Yes, yeah.
So they called it the dynamic meditation, and it's a meditation where you first just pump up your breast like that. All right. For 10 minutes.
Oh gosh, okay.
Then for 10 minutes you get totally berserk. You jump up and down, you scream, you cry, you roll over the floor and everything. After that, you have 15 minutes. You jump up and down for 10 minutes and landing on your heels and saying, who, to ground yourself.
That would crucify my back. I couldn't do that.
And then you stand still for 15 minutes, immobile.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in India, it's pretty hot, you know. So
yes, yeah.
by the time I was standing still, the sweat was dripping from my body. I was standing in a puddle of my own sweat.
Yeah, nice. Lovely.
And I said, I'm not going to do this meditation anymore. I went to the one who was guiding the meditation. I said, this is too much for me.
Yeah.
Said, what happens? Well, I become dizzy and sweating. He said, well, the only thing you have to do is double your speed.
Oh, make it worse for yourself.
Because this is just resistance what you're feeling.
Okay.
So I did, and indeed.
And it worked.
It worked.
Wow.
Yes, so.
Wow.
So apart from these meditations and the workshops I was following, there were lectures, and we were in a big hall with about 2,000-3,000 people.
Oh my goodness! And
he was alternating between talking in Hindi and talking in English.
Wow!
And you know what he was saying. The lectures were so funny and so deep that you know alternatingly we were just rolling over the floor with laughter and just crying our hearts out, you know. It was really something. But well, at a certain moment, most of the people who were there were asking for initiation, to be initiated by him.
Initiated
into sannyas. Sannyas means he or she who walks alone.
Okay.
Which doesn't mean that you cannot have a marriage or a family, but you are aware of the fact that in the end you are by yourself. Said, well, I'm not going to do that, you know. I don't want to be initiated by some, you know, guru. But somehow it kept pulling me, you know. And in one of the last workshops I followed, which was an unstructured encounter group, in which I saw incredible things happening and transformations happening. I looked at the Englishman who was guiding the group, and we were all naked, you know, in the group.
Oh, what, 2,000-3,000 people?
Oh, 3 days,
so
for 3 days.
Right.
And I saw the leader just look at Osho's photo in the group. It was a big photo of Osho. And then he had a tiny smile, and then he just said something to someone, and immediately something happened. It was magic. It was miraculous. And so in the end, I said, well, I don't know what it's good for and why I should do it, but I have a feeling that it would be good to ask for sannyas. Which I did. And he, in the ceremony, he touched my third eye. And that was the first time I looked into his eyes. It was the first time that I was totally speechless. I like talking, you know, totally speechless. He asked if I had a question, and my head was totally empty. I could only laugh and cry and cry and laugh. And that was the beginning of a shift in my life. That has in the end resulted in what I'm doing now.
Wow, gosh. So
yeah, so I came back to the Netherlands, and I picked up where I left with the painting. I was invited to take part in a European exhibition for oil painting, and in Brussels, and I won a first prize.
Oh wow!
With that painting.
So you finished that. You finished the one.
I finished it in 1 month. Yeah.
Wow! Wow! Inspirational.
So that's when I decided to start teaching painting. So I had my painting workshops, and it was nice to do. It was a challenge, but I really liked doing it. But I saw that most of the participants were sort of, what do you call it, contracted, cramped.
Yeah, stiff.
They wanted it to be a Rembrandt right away.
Okay.
And so in an impulse, I just decided that we start by massaging each other's shoulders and neck and head before we start doing anything. And the difference in what came out was so striking that I became interested in the relationship between creativity and relaxation. And so I enrolled for a course on deep tissue massage, postural integration, in which you work with the contractions in the body and stretch them and allow emotions to come out. When I went to the demonstration of this course, I saw amazing things happening, in 1 hour in a person. So I was totally motivated to do that. By the way, in Pune, in India, where I was with Osho, I had heard for the first time about this course, this method. And this was 7 years later. So I took the course and I started my own practice. And then I continued with a course in emotional integration, because the emotional work appeared to be a very big part of what was cleaning out, the stuff that people were struggling with. And after that, I just could see the relationship between the body and the feelings and the mind. And so in the 90s, I spent 10 years learning about how to shift the mind, how to shift the programs that are the conditionings that are in our system. That was with the Avatar courses in Florida. And while I was learning, I was also teaching. But the Avatar organization was sort of rigid in a way that you could never alter anything about how you presented the course and the wordings, and it just in the end it went against my creative freedom,
Yes, yeah.
So around the turn of the century, I decided to say goodbye, farewell to this group where we had yearly meetings of thousands of people coming together in big ballrooms from all over the world. It was an interesting and very inspirational period, those 10 years. But I decided to just start on my own and combine what I had already learned about the body and about the feelings with the arts and what I had learned about mind shifting. So this is where I started around the turn of the century. And I have been continuing on till this very day. And I'm 78 now.
Yeah, absolutely. Look amazing.
Absolutely. It's becoming more and more rewarding.
Yeah.
In getting older and having your life experiences and meeting all your students as teachers, because they are mirror images of aspects of yourself that you maybe haven't dealt with yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a continuous learning and a continuous feast of recognition and opening up and laughter and silliness and going deep.
Yeah, brilliant. Being silly and going deep at the same time seems to be a contradiction, but that's how it happens, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And also the gross and the subtle, connecting the gross and the subtle is very important in this work.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. You mentioned Osho, and I'd never heard of him until recently, and he keeps on and on cropping up. And a friend of mine is reading his work, and he sends me some wonderful quotes from page this, line that, paragraph such and such, and it's really lovely. He's in his 40s and he's sending me readings and teachings from Osho, which is really quite nice. And I had no idea that you'd actually met him and been sort of welcomed into this thing. No, I didn't. No, it's fascinating.
A nice surprise.
Yeah, and he'll be thrilled to know that he knows somebody that's actually been touched by the hand of Osho. So how cool is that? And I'm sure, Carl, you'll be delighted when you hear this recording as well that you mentioned, and it's exactly what your mum's been guiding you in all these years. So that was for Carl.
Yeah.
That was for Carl, that mention, of course.
Yes. And well, many people who had been with him and came back to Europe, they started communes.
Yes.
But I had a dog, and dogs were not allowed in the communes. And so I decided not to go into a commune, stay on my own. And I've never regretted that. Wonderful.
Yeah. And here we are in Portugal, and you've just run a 10-day retreat for people, and they're going off now and assimilating what they've learned in their life, and your teachings, as you say, they end up being teachers as well, because in their way they end up spreading what they're learning from you, and it's very rewarding when you see that. It must be fascinating.
Absolutely.
So what guidance would you give? Oh, one thing you mentioned, that when you were with when you were at Osho's place, in this workshop with 16 or so people, you were all naked. What's that all about? Why were you naked?
Well, one of the things that he was pointing at was that we have all been indoctrinating in the West, basically also through the religions. That there's something wrong with parts of our body. And this is one of the reasons why in many people the life energy cannot flow through the body unhampered.
Right.
So it's being oppressed in the pelvis.
Yeah.
And it's being oppressed here in the throat chakra and around the breast area, because it's taboo. It's all we connect it immediately with sex.
Yes.
And you're being touched here or touched here, it's sex. Yeah. So there is a very strong taboo on certain aspects of the body, and so that was one of the reasons why he created workshops where people really reveal their nudity. Yeah. And even if they have a misshapen body, or are not beautiful, or the tits are hanging, you have to learn to really embrace your body in its totality for you to be able to totally unfold and blossom.
Yeah, amazing.
It was a hard time for me, because we had one room with loo pots standing one side from the other, with no
division.
Yes.
Sounds like
Glastonbury Festival. So shocking for me that the first 2 days I just held up my poo. I didn't want to go, but then finally, when I allowed myself to let go, it has helped me so tremendously, becoming more natural and more uninhibited, and So also in my body work, I like people to just take off all their clothes. When they ask how do you want me, I said, well, just what do you think of sauna costume?
Sauna costume?
Sauna.
Oh, sauna, yes. Sauna. Oh, sauna, yeah. Okay. Yeah, the sauna costume.
And they get familiar with that immediately after 1 or 2 sessions. It's just normal. Yeah. It's just an idea between our ears. There's something shameful or dirty about certain parts of the body.
The limiting beliefs we have that we're not born with, of course, that we're conditioned in our early years, aren't we, to all kinds of nonsense, really, and it's from other people. I grew up in the first, probably till I was an early teenager, believing that my ears stuck out. And for years I read a book with my hands over my ears like this, so my elbows would be on the table and I'd be reading, because my nan said to me, I told her, nobody else knew, my parents didn't know about this, and Nan said to me, well, put your ears back and then eventually they'll stay back, so read a book. So I've turned a page, and then I put my hand up and then I turned a page. So for years I read a book like that.
This is such a good example of how we have become twisted, you know, and separated from our authentic being.
So I had all my life, my hairstyles have always been covering my ears, and then 2015 I had a bit of chemotherapy for the stage 4 cancer that I reversed very quickly, and I shaved my head. In fact, my son, I got asked him with these zappers, you know, he shaved my head because I wasn't having hair falling out somebody else's behest. And as it turns out, I had so little, I went against conventional medicine, and I did my own thing. I had my own recipe, should we say, of my recovery, and my hair wouldn't fall in out anyway, but that gave me a wonderful experience that I could then empathise with people who have lost their hair. And I had a great time with all these turban things and creations I made with scarves, and I've got some lovely photos of me like that I wouldn't have had I not gone through that experience. But ever since then, you know, my ears are my ears. They're just ears. So what? Big deal, you know. So ever since then, I've had my hair. I've never had it so short.
I like it.
And
it makes you look a little bit like Peter Pan.
Oh, that's nice. Yes. Thank you. I'm 65, going backwards. Peter Pan. Yeah, very good. Excellent. But as you say, growing older, we have the wisdom of the experiences that we've had and the teachings, and we're always learning, aren't we? Every day we learn something. Every single day there's something. Day.
And also, you know, in the process, when you're becoming more and more acquainted with yourself, and more happy.
Like
to be you.
Snug as a bug in a rug.
Then also the gratitude about life is deepening. Very simple thing. Just looking at a flower, how it's structure, how it's coming out, you know, and how the sun sets and how the birds are singing. Like in your garden, you know.
It's magnificent, isn't it? Absolutely magnificent.
A very simple thing. And also having learned to be present, you know, in this moment, is a tremendous blessing in my contact and my communication with people.
Absolutely.
So I love my own company. I love being alone, but I also really enjoy being with people.
It's a nice mix, and we can do that on our own terms. So when we're ready to be social, we can, but equally we're comfortable in our own skin and happy in our own company. So many people go through life. My mother was one, and she wasn't happy to be in her own company, and as a result she was lonely. I'm never lonely because there's 3 of me, myself and I, all 3 of us are very happy together, and we live alongside, we coexist very, very nicely, thank you. But not everybody can do that because they've not found whatever it is within themselves. They've not found that little golden nugget, but it is there.
It's there. And it's such a miracle if you can help other people to bring that self to the surface.
Absolutely. So how do people find out about your retreats, Yoyo? How do they find you? What's your website address?
My website is yoyo.nl.
So yoyo.nl.
Yes. And so there is it's mostly Dutch, but in the right top corner there's an English flag, and if you press that you get the basic information about what's going on and where and when will be the next retreat.
Okay, and you've also got some of your paintings are on there, I believe, on the website.
Well, I have a separate website on my paintings in the making, but it's not quite finished yet. It will take another 2 months, I think, before it's on. But there are some pictures that you can already see on the website. Yeah.
Yeah. And
but also I'm doing online coaching, so people who would have questions or things that they're struggling with, they can write me.
Brilliant.
And we can have a chat.
And you've written a book as well, haven't you? Tell us about your book.
Oh, yes. The book started when I was just on my way, just with the center that I'd started 2 years, and then it took me 7 years to write the book. And the book is basically, it was growing with the unfolding of the flowering course. And so it's about these 8 stages of awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And next to that, it's kind of a biography,
Yes.
autobiography, in which people can follow me on my life's path. And the translation also took me some 7 odd years, but it's just finished. And it's not yet launched, but people can order a PDF of the book through my website, with the illustrations of my paintings in it.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. So it's already out there in Dutch, and it's going to be available in English shortly.
Yes. The title is Sacred Shit.
Sacred Shit.
Yes. Maybe it needs an explanation. The subtitle is Food for Unfolding. And it's a metaphor of the lotus that is getting its food out of the mud, out of the dirt, out of the shit, and transforms it into beauty and purity. And in the same way, we can learn to transform the shit of the world into beauty and unconditional love.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And lastly, your name, Yoyo. You weren't born Yoyo, were you? Or were you, perhaps?
No. I have been given a name by Osho. My name was Else. I used to be someone else, which is short for Elizabeth.
Okay.
In Holland. Else. You would say Elsa, maybe.
Yes, yeah.
And Osho said Else comes from the root El or Al, which means God. And he gave me the name Prem Else. Prem is love. Ma Prem Else. Ma is mother. Prem is love. And Else is God. So Mother Goddess of love.
Oh, wow.
So then in the 90s, when I had another breakthrough, I thought I'd rename myself. And my second birth name is Joanna, Yoanno.
Okay.
My mother gave me that name. She was listening to a radio program during the war. She was pregnant with me in 43. And there was a writer, an author, who was telling about his beautiful wife with whom he had been married for 50 years. And he said she has a very romantic name. You have to pronounce it in a particular way. You just pout your lips as if you're going to kiss someone, and then you spread your lips into a beautiful smile. Joanna.
Oh, I see. Joanna. It's a nice
Joanna.
smile.
Joanna.
Yeah. Joanna.
Yes. And my mother was a romantic, so she gave me that second name.
Okay.
And then I told a friend that I had chosen my second birth name for the future. And then she said, I think it's a bit serious, that name.
Yeah.
Why don't you just shorten it to Yoyo? and that clicked, you know.
Ah.
For me, the yo-yo, it's a toy, you know.
Yes,
and for me, it's a symbol of dealing with the ups and downs of life in a playful way.
Very good. Absolutely fantastic. So yoyo.nl, Yoyo's been a pure delight meeting you and speaking with you today. Thank you so much.